Hello, and welcome to the 2017 Fall Foliage Tour. If you would like to know more about it, we have these flyers here at the Soil and Water Office. I'm Elizabeth Schnabel, and I'm the Education Specialist for the Medina County Soil and Water Conservation District. So a little history about the Fall Foliage Tour. Well, for starters, if you look at the front cover, it says since 1968. So this year, 2018, will be the 50th anniversary. A little bit about the Fall Foliage Tour. Actually, when it was organized, it was actually the farm tour, because that was what Medina County was predominantly, was agriculture. But we have changed that so that we also are highlighting a lot of the historical areas in Medina County. This is totally an education tour. It is not a commercial tour, and we want to feature local farmers and local historical sites. It also is organized by a group of agencies. The Medina County Park is on the committee, of course the Medina Soil and Water District, Medina County Convention and Visitors Bureau, Medina County District Library, and the Medina County Farm Bureau. We're starting with Pioneers in the Park. One of the things that we encourage all the hosts to do is to have a good entrance sign. Again, going in one direction, going out another. And of course they can do their own independent sign there besides the fall foliage sign. We want also effective signage all around. If it's a large site, we ask people to go ahead and designate, for instance, you can see an exhibitor area where the welcome table is. And here's a piece of historical. New this year, or new last year for 2017, was the Buckeye Mercantile, with all kinds of samples of what the pioneers would have bought. And games where you get the whole family and the children involved. There again, look at the signage, checkers, and using corn for their movable parts. New again last year was the gold panning. It wasn't quite set up at that time, but they actually had water running down a little stream, and yes, the kids could get their pans and pan for gold. One of the neat things about Pioneers in the Park are watching the encampments. You literally can walk into some of these tents and see how they are living. The pioneers will be cooking. In fact, at certain times of the day you walk through and you just want to invite yourself to the table because it smells so good. Here's inside one of the tents. This was a whole family, and so hence the bunk beds. But when I peeked inside this tent and saw the beautiful rug on the floor, I thought, wait a minute, pioneer camping? Then inside the historic vendor tent would be different. Vendors, some of them selling things and others just simply there to educate and answer questions. The second host was Geig's Orchard. Good frontage sign. Of course, they are open during the harvest season and during the summer. So this is their normal sign, but then the fall foliage sign would also be there. If there's going to be a lot of traffic, and yes, there will be on the Fall Foliage Tour unless it's just a terrible storm, but on good days there's lots of traffic. So we always suggest to have someone directing the traffic and making sure people come in the right direction and go and exit the correct way. If you're going to be selling something, as Geig's Orchard would, they want to sell their apples, so they have extra salespeople there and also things attractively displayed. This was fun, and I'm noticing more hosts are doing it, is just simply a photo opportunity, a site where family can sit down and have their portrait. The big chunk of education that was going on at Geig's was the cider pressing. And you could watch the apples go up the conveyor belt. You could watch them coming out as mush, and then you would see him. This fellow right now has a hose, and he's basically spreading the mush back and forth, and then the pressing comes, and you see and smell that wonderful cider coming out. Here is Brian Geig actually allowing the apples to go up the conveyor belt. There in the background, and in the foreground you can see what the apples look like after they've been pressed. And if you want to pick your own, there in the orchard are all the signs talking about the different varieties of apples. The third host on the 2017 tour was Seville Library. Again, a beautiful day, signs were up and people came. The activity tent was just bustling with families and multiple activities, all free to the public. Here the book stacking was new this year, and evidently you could stack them up, and if you got the award and got as many before it tippled over, then you could select your book, free again. And face painting, all great stuff. Inside the library, besides lots of books, was live entertainment, and you could sit and select a magazine and sit down and relax. Or you could go over to the interactive toys, as this little girl is doing. And this was a bonus. On their back porch of the library was the refreshments, and it was cider and cookies and all kinds of yummy things. The fourth host was Seville Historical Society. Old home there on the main street of Seville. Inside are a lot of local artifacts. In the backyard are a couple artifacts that have been there, although this one was brought in, the old brick jail, and it truly was used there in Seville. And this was made just in time for the Fall Foliage Tour. It's a replica of the very first school in Medina County. They have since been working on the interior, but they wanted to get the exterior all finished, and this is sitting behind the historical house. And the peddler's wagon. You can peek inside and see what the old-fashioned peddler, this would be like a moving grocery store or a moving Target store. It had everything in it. The fifth host was Maple Valley Farm. This is owned by the Fulton family and multi-generations. You can see it is a dairy farm, but they also have a grain operation. There at the Welcome Center, guest registration, and it just simply had some intriguing questions and intriguing designs and displays. So we're going to walk around the farm, and that's the beauty about the Fall Foliage Tour. Many times you pass these places, you drive by them, and you look and you think, I wonder what's going on there. What is going on inside that barn? What is a dairy all about? What's a milking parlor? Well, on the Fall Foliage Tour, you get a chance to get out of your car and actually walk around, and there are hosts that explain and answer your questions. So, we're going to the calf barn. Inside are newborn calves, some of them maybe a few days old. They had a name the calf contest, but wouldn't that be a soft bedding to be able to go on fresh hay every night and go to bed? Well, it's daytime and they're going to bed. We really encourage all of our hosts to have a lot of education up. So, what does a baby calf eat? And there it is. It also talks about the tags that are within it, and if it's a white tag, it is a heifer, and if it's a yellow tag, it's a little young fella, a little bull. So, hello, who am I? Well, I see a yellow tag, so that must be a little fella. Also on display at the Fulton Farm were the equipment that they use, and every young kid and older kid loves to climb up and see what it feels like to be on the tractor seat, and so they could do that. Now we're going to the milking parlor. Inside right away we can smell the cleanliness of it. This is milk that is sent to a processor, and it's put in, it's drinking milk, so it's got to be the top quality. So the bulk tank is there, so after the milk is finished, it's chilled down to a certain temperature. We went over then to the heifer barn. These are older female cows now that will someday be part of the milking herd. And the family is just so delighted to be able, and in fact, I remember later one of the little girls went ahead and touched the nose of the heifer. And we went into where now the mature females are, and they literally have mattresses that they sleep on. And the philosophy is, the happier the cow is, the better she likes to make milk and gives milk. But notice a good diet coming for them. In the big barn, in the loft barn, were several activities. This was the straw maze, and notice it's not real high, so a child doesn't get lost in there and parents can watch them. In this case, the parent was so intrigued, they went into the straw maze too. There were different education distributors or agencies that came in. This one was Bike Medina County, talking about safety, what you should wear and what you should have on your bicycle when you're out biking. This was the soil and water display, talking about extra nutrients going into storm drains because of dog's poop. So we had to have our little education spiel on that one. And the Farm Bureau had several games to play and also great agricultural information. I love this. Very nice touch at the end when they were pulling out to exit to continue the tour. Thank you for visiting our farm. Host number 6 was Sky Park. Sky Park is located right outside of Wadsworth. Sky Park has also been designated as an Ohio historical place, and it was created a number of years ago. It's located right on top of the hill, and on a good day, the wind is just perfect and they can take off quite easily. So we can go into the terminal, we can look around, and we can also watch the airplanes coming and going. So, welcome table. Yes, there's you can see the host sign, the sponsor sign. They are giving education to this gentleman. And right across from them was the registration table if you wanted an airplane ride. It was $10 per person, very generous. So here are people waiting in line. They had to be escorted across the runway, so very much safety oriented, watching for the planes. And then sitting back, if you weren't going to take a ride and you just wanted to watch the planes coming and going, there was plenty to see and do. Inside the terminal, the folks had a great education displays going on, and they also had a flight simulator. So here's a father and the son, and trust me, the dad was doing a little bit much better actually, flying his plane versus the young fella. I think he kind of bumped and had a few accidents with his airplane. And some of the pilots were gathered up in the education room kind of discussing. They may have been replacement pilots later on in the day for the flights. Host number 7, Wadsworth Historical Society. This is talking another Ohio historical marker, talking about the Johnson House. Formerly it was the doctor's office. Outside of the Johnson House were all these scarecrows. And neat feature about them is they each were depicting a historical person in Wadsworth. Inside the Johnson House were great displays. The one over on the right was actually displaying items that were sold and perhaps even still are being sold within Wadsworth City. Oh, here are some of the articles. Of course, the match, the blue tip match, was so big. In fact, Wadsworth is still having a parade. Upstairs was the Wadsworth schoolroom. Again, if you wanted to do some history to see if your parents would be in one of the pictures or labeled in one of the yearbooks, here would be the room you could look up for that. Outside, this was a big treat. There was an old-fashioned ice cream maker, and could you get a sample, or did you just have to sit and watch it being made? You could get a sample. In fact, here is Roger showing how it is being done, and people were intrigued. They keep saying, why are you putting salt in there? Well, the salt makes the ice colder, and hence makes that ice cream harden faster. Now we have the points of interest, and this was right across from the Johnson House was Grace Lutheran Church. Beautiful Gothic depiction. In fact, that rose window in front is a copy of those over in France. Inside, it was a beautiful historic sanctuary. There was Tom Reese was explaining the history of the church for those people who came in. And then as soon as the little spiel about the history was over, then there was an organ recital by mostly Medina County organists who came over and volunteered their time. Very popular. Also, the second point of interest was the Wadsworth Brewing Company. Very good. This was where Erica and Joy were there showing. Outside, people were tasting and sampling the brews, and inside, people were sitting and chatting and just enjoying this atmosphere, which basically the owners have put together and got some old things from other historical buildings. Brewing information, and behind you can see some of the brewing equipment. Erica's going ahead and explaining how the process is going. And again, you could have a sample, although you'd have to pay for them at this place, or a full jug if you wanted. Host number 8, the Stoney Ridge Stables. New this year, and we really enjoyed having them on. This is owned by the Fryer company, family, and Jennifer was telling that, in fact, made up some coupons, and we're giving them out that you could actually come back and have a free riding lesson if you chose to. Their stable and show ring were set up for demonstrations. They had a huge parking area, and it was filled. When you have this many cars on a tour, we always suggest that the host have someone there kind of directing where people park so that there's no wasted space. So they were doing that very well. And because there's a lot of guests on the Fall Foliage Tour, sometimes we have 6,000, 7,000. 2017 we had 8,000 visitors. Huge. But anyway, look at all the porta potties, and even one for handicap. Inside the stables, and they had 3 stables actually, you could visit the horses. They had information under the stalls. They also had young gals from the Stoney Ridge IEA club who were there explaining different things about riding, explaining the different riding skills. And this is a huge barn, and so I didn't walk across, and it was kind of dark inside, so excuse me, it's a little out of focus, but the best I could do. But what was so neat, they were giving free rides to the children and being escorted again by the young ladies. Outside, if you wanted to feel like what does a horse feel like when he's riding in one of these trailers, well, you could step inside and find out. Host number 9, Blooming Acres. This was, again, new this year in the Wadsworth area. Well, it's not new in the Wadsworth area. It was new on the Fall Foliage Tour. Good display. Inside, you walked in and you could smell that floral, the plant, the botany. It was just all over the place, but a scary greeter. And the floor was a little slippery, and so they had some signs saying, just be careful because you're inside a greenhouse. The greenhouse tour was great. You can see how they have that irrigation hanging down from the ceiling, and this is done automatically by a timer, but again, the different types of flowers or plants were labeled, so if you were a curious botanist, you could find out what they're, sometimes even the scientific names. Very cool. The drip system is what I was trying to remember. They were featuring more of the fall plants for the tour, and they had mums on sale. And the beekeepers were there with their education, beehive actually, so you could watch the bees making honey, and sure, you could buy some honey too. This was another point of interest. It was Barn Talk Hops. right outside of Wadsworth. This was new this year. In fact, they have only been open for a few years, and they were getting their showroom ready for the tours. So they were a little nervous, but they did a fantastic job of being new hosts. The first thing is we were walked over to where the hops plants were. Now, earlier in the year, about a month before, they had to harvest it because those flowers, which I will show you later, but you can kind of see them in my little oval picture insert there. When they are ripe, they need to be harvested right then to get the full flavor of the hops. But they left, Mike and Joy left a few of their plants up just so you could see how tall they are. If you go over and see on Fixler Road, at the end of the summer, you would be able to see a huge acreage of these tall plants up on telephone poles strung up. So Fixler's Road. There were two gentlemen there who grow their own hops, but they were explaining how it is harvested, and then you walk up to the barn and you can see them actually. This is the machine that actually pops that hops flower off of the vine, and then the next step after that are the flowers. Whoop, I missed the step. But anyway, this was part of the display, and you can see some of the hops and you can actually smell them. It's a great aroma. Here's some more samples of the hops. In fact, you could buy some starter plants if you wanted to. And then the last place was the drying racks that you could peek inside, but this is where the flower of the hops goes to be dried. And yes, samples of IPA, which is India Pale Ale, which uses hops for their flavor. They were small samples, and so you could drive very safely afterwards. And our hosts, Mike and Joy, or Jennifer, were there showing their pleasant faces. They had a great time, and all the guests who came by really, truly enjoyed. And is it always two-legged? Not always. It's sometimes four-legged. And I really had to take a picture of these two because they were decked out for the Fall Foliage Tour, and on leashes, noticed. So thank you, hosts, for providing such a quality education tour for Medina County. Thank you, Fall Foliage Tour Committee, for your careful planning and supporting the hosts. And thank you, our dear Father, for watching over and protecting this tour and creating a beautiful autumn colors in Medina County. These are the organizing agencies: Medina County Park District, Soil and Water District, Convention and Visitors Bureau, Library, and Medina County Farm Bureau. And we have several very dedicated volunteers on our committee.